great to be here with Quinn. Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess my first question for you, though, I mean, we can also just like chit chat back and forth, whatever you're feeling. But I first got into your music like pre-COVID, like probably like
hmm
2019 or so. And how the hell were you so young? How are you that young making like I don't want that many friends anyway? Because I was 20, I think, when I first heard that track. And I like couldn't believe the info online that said that you were only like 14. I was like, how is this even possible? So just like, how did you first get started in music? Did you always like play instruments or anything? I get the sense that you must have been like a child prodigy.
I'm actually glad you asked that question because a lot of people I come across, even like diehard listeners, just assume that I'm already in like my mid to late 20s, and they're always surprised when I tell them that I'm 19. So the
Yeah.
whole thing is the whole thing is that I was 9 years old when I started like making anything really, and the whole thing behind it was I wanted to make music super badly. Like I've always wanted to make it when growing up and all that. And I always thought I was too young to like make music or even remotely get involved. And then I just had like an epiphany at that young ass age, and I was like, I could just really start now. Like there's nothing stopping me, and I have lots of free time. I could just like this could be my hobby. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
my parents, I begged them to get me an iPad uh, so I could get on GarageBand and start learning how to produce music. And I became a producer when I say officially, when I was like 11, because that's when I met the first artist that I produced for. And I don't exactly remember his name. I think it was some shit like Trap Nate. I don't know. But first I was just like producing just regular trap records and stuff like that. Then that turned into like cloud rap and shit like that. And then it turned into trap metal, which was,
Really?
ooh, that was a terrible time.
I'm
No one
surprised.
was
I
involved.
could never imagine you doing that genre. That's really surprising.
Yeah, my music. That's also when I started making vocals, and my music used to be like super, super, super dark, really edgy. Because that's the time period I'm going through. I'm like, I was like 12, 13 when I was making trap metal, and the people I was surrounded by were not the best people. So to me, it was a challenge on like how edgy I could be. So I was just like, just making dark ass music. Luckily, I never acted out or nothing like that. But you know, like no, never like hate speech and shit like that. It was just me just being really mean to people because I was trying to like assert dominance as a young kid. And after a while, like not even a while, I'd say after a little bit, I got tired of that whole community. And I'd say when I was 14, I was just like, yeah, I'm out of here. Like, all of you guys are sick fucks. Like, y'all get up to crazy shit. And I'm finally old enough to, like, understand the weight of your actions, and I'm gone. And so I got up and dipped from that scene, and that's when I started using auto-tune. This was I was becoming a freshman in high school at this time, back in 2019. And that's when I discovered the homie Saturn on
Hmm.
SoundCloud, and he has a song named Burr. And I remember my friend Justin sent me that because we used to play Roblox together, and he was like,
Nice.
"Dude, like this is some crazy shit. Like no one's heard nothing like this before." And back then, like really, no one's heard nothing like that before. So it was like fucking revolutionary to me. And also, while I was playing Roblox, the people I was playing with were like deeply involved. Well, not involved, but they had their ears to the underground and like parts of the underground that I never knew existed. Just a bunch of people who were sharing their like love for music and like I don't know, sharing it with each other. Well, I wouldn't say exactly sharing it. I'd say like playing it around each other because it was still very gatekeepy. A lot of
Yeah.
kids. And yeah, man, that's how I basically found the whole. I'd say this whole side of the underground because there's many sides, but that's how I found this one. And one day I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of doing these tired of doing these dry ass vocals. I'm gonna download Auto-Tune, try to get my mixing up, see what I can do. And not only did I like branch out in mixing when I downloaded Auto-Tune, but also production. And I just started making like pretty much whatever. And that's how a lot of my early songs were made. It was just in my closet in Virginia, full of paper towels, had the snowball set up, this shitty Toshiba laptop that was like near death. And that's where I recorded, like what you just said, I don't want that many friends in the first place. That's where I recorded others, like really old tracks that a lot of early fans heard, like I Don't Really Give a Fuck No More, or Lying on the Floor, songs like that, you know. And I think Lying on the Floor was the first song that I ever used Auto-Tune on and released officially. And I think that was a changer for me, because everybody was telling me like, yeah, that's your shit. Like you gotta build off of that. And now we're in 2024. I mean, a lot's happened in the community that could be so many stories. But, you know, that's how I ended up here, at least, you know what I mean? That's how I got started. And yeah, man, just out here.
Yeah, no, but I'm also curious, like what was it like being a high school kid making this like crazy music online? Like, did any of your friends at school or your teachers or anybody like know about you or your music, or did it feel like you had like a double life? Like, I'm just trying to picture that.
I was like leading a double life kind of, because in school I was never known really. I went to 2 high schools. I went to 10 or 11 schools in total, because I live in a military family. We've moved around. But as far as high schools, I've only been to 2. And that's Colgan High School in Virginia. And that was an art school where the magnet was music. So it was just kind of, I was already just zoned for that school. I never like applied to get into it. It was just a high school I ended up going to. And it was the only art school in Northern Virginia, DC, Maryland, like tri-state area. So it had about upwards of 4,000 students.
Wow.
And a lot of those people I didn't know. Like, of course I didn't. You know, it's hard to have any quote-unquote popular cliques or anything in a school like that. You know what I mean? But even then, I was still out of the loop. I only knew people I went to class with. Yeah, that shit sucked, basically. And I had to lead a double life because, you know, I wasn't trying to put myself out there. My whole thing was like, I'm just going to keep my head down and, you know, graduate, and then I'll take life into my own hands, you know, do what I please. And, you know, of course I still had my selection of friends, but, you know, I was comfortable with them. And then I'd say in the middle of, I think it was in the middle of junior year, actually. Sophomore year was entirely virtual due to COVID. But in the middle of my junior year is when I moved to Columbus, Georgia, which is about an hour and a half out from Atlanta. And that school fucking sucked, dude. Like, my first option was Spencer High School, which, funnily enough, that's the same high school that Baby Santana was going to.
Really?
And, yeah, he lived like 7 minutes away from my crib, because that's the city where he's also from.
Oh, no idea.
Nothing like that.
Yeah. That's crazy.
We just always ended up having like mutual friends and shit. But yeah, I ended up going to this school. I lived on a military base since we couldn't afford living in Columbus, which is kind of crazy because they're paying people to move there now. But we lived on base, and the school I went to was about 20 to 30 minutes south of the base, and it was in like the deep south. This small town named Casita, with only about like 140 people living there, and you know, it was basically it was a middle high school, and my graduating class was about 63. But the problem was everyone at that high school was just like dense, dude. I don't know how to explain it accurately. Like, you know what else to expect from a deep south high school that mainly has military children, and anyone who's not military is a deep south, you know, just resident. And with me being from the east side, like, with me being a city kid and all, I didn't mesh well with that. So a lot of people were confused when I went to school, and, you know, I guess I don't know. I guess a thing that happens in these kinds of schools is that there's a lot of like racism and shit like that,
I could
and just a
imagine.
lot of bullying of all kinds, no matter who you are. And when I showed up, they like expected me to subject myself to that, and they were kind of confused when they saw me standing up for myself. So by default, a lot of people had a problem with me because I don't know, I just wasn't going for bullshit. And my whole mission there was, again, to keep my head down and just graduate. You know, I wasn't in it for all the bullshit. And then that changed. Then eventually I was in it for all the bullshit because I ended up, like, since it was a small school, I ended up knowing pretty much everybody. And since I was standing up for myself, people were considering me, like, oh, tough, strong, even though I never really got in any fights. Um, and so with that being said, like, yeah, I made the fact that I made music, like, or make music, a big secret. And anyone who found it out, I didn't care who they told. Eventually, the whole school knew, and people were like, "Oh yeah, you that rapper, right?" And just random people who like damn sure didn't listen to my music would want to take pictures of me with me in the hallway and shit like that. And it didn't bother me. I'm like, all right, fuck it, you know, like it bothers some people, but it's not really a big deal to me. So I'm like, okay, we'll take pictures. Granted, I didn't look good in them, but it's not like anybody's gonna see them. But that's besides the point. Um, I feel like I had to keep my life kind of double because it was a lot that people like wanted out of me in school because I don't know. Yeah, I made music and it was doing good, and no one's ever seen anything like that except for Baby Santana up at Spencer's, and a lot of them didn't even know who that was. So I guess I was that school's quote unquote superstar. But then I ended up getting expelled in senior year. I was still able to graduate, but I ended up getting expelled because in senior year, that's when I was like, I don't know, I kind of lost my mind senior year. Lots of drug abuse, like in and out of school too. And that just kind of spiraled into me getting kicked out, like a bunch of small situations, drama, and all that shit. And after that, like, I don't know, I've just been working on music pretty hard ever since. I stopped for about 6 to 8 months because I was just like, I was just really, really down and out. And recently I got back into the mix. So, yeah, that's basically what brings us to the present.
That makes sense. So your senior year, that must have been 2022. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That was last year, 2023.
2023. Okay. Because I was gonna say, yeah, what was going on in 2022? Because it's like you released like so many full length projects then that all had like completely different sounds, and it seemed like you were so prolific. And you're still making stuff now. I mean, your newest single is fire, but like, yeah, it definitely seems like you've quieted down a little bit since then. Like, I remember around when I'm Going Insane and the self-titled came out, it just seemed like you had a new project like every few weeks or something, and it was crazy.
Yeah, because at that time I was figuring out like what the hell I really wanted to make, and then I just had this mindset like you could just make anything. I still have that mindset, but it's hard to make anything when you already have a sound in your head that you're trying to chase.
Yeah.
Uh, so like yeah, around that time I was really just trying to figure out who I was. You know, I was with my just brainstorming a lot with my manager at the time, Jesse Tacanelli, and you know we was just trying to figure out the ways to captivate my audience like the most, and we both figured out that it would be best to like release some intimate records since a lot of people feel a connection to me, because of what I've been through and how they can relate to it and everything like that. So I wanted to engage with the listeners, and I think it worked pretty well, of course. And I also used that as an opportunity to have like my first official like album layouts or rollouts, I meant. And yeah, it was pretty fun. And I've been pretty quiet this year because I'm trying to like all the mixtapes I've dropped. I like them all. They're all great. However, I think I can do better than that. So I'm trying to stop myself from dropping another one of those because I feel like I've gotten too in the hang of it, and to me at least, they're great, but compared to what I've made in the past, they're like kind of devoid of creativity. I mean, they still have it; it's there, but like I said, I can do better than that. So I've just been trying to like just perfect the next project, whether it be a mixtape or a full length project. And yeah, I've been working a lot with Dorian, Fear Dorian. Actually going to see him today.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, he'll just come over he just graduated about, I think, last week. So he's just been over my apartment, like, and we've just been making music for like 2-3 days straight, and he would just crash on the couch.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, that's really helped get my love for like making music back and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And it's crazy. Dorian's honestly might be like my favorite producer around right now. Like, just the stuff he's been on is just so crazy. Like, I was talking to Heartstop Miami yesterday and just going over all their singles together. Like, it's just the sound that they're making is nuts. But
Yeah.
I want to ask you. It's interesting hearing about your like progression from this angle, and also your sort of process, because just looking at your discography as an outsider, it seems like you're someone who's always constantly pushing yourself to reinvent your sound and to discover new sounds, new ideas. And I want to know sort of where that restlessness kind of comes from, because a lot of your tracks and a lot of your tapes just sound like they could be the work of totally different artists. I mean, like on your self-titled, there's stuff that almost feels like neo soul, like, you know, like sort of like post Lauryn Hill or D'Angelo. And then you have stuff that's like totally in the like digital, like plug, like cloud rap stuff. And then you have stuff that's just like straight up emo, and also stuff that just draws on club music. So where do all these like disparate influences, and not just disparate influences, but your willingness to change yourself up, where does that come from?
Okay, so not only do I like making music, I think the only thing I like more than making music when it comes to music is listening to it. So I've got like, I remember back in like 2020 to 2020, even to this day actually, since I've made so many types of music, I like put my foot in a bunch of different communities, like, you know, breakcore community, or if whatever the fuck you want to call that. But I'd say drum and bass community.
Yeah,
and
jungle.
Fucking like ambient communities, even punk communities. I go to a lot of local punk shows around here, out of state, all that shit, and know a lot of old ass punks and shit like that, and show promoters and shit. I just haven't really done any shows with them because it's kind of hard to bill punk artists with literally anyone else.
Yes.
Yeah, both punk and hardcore movements. I don't even know. Like, I could just scroll through my liked songs on Spotify, and I'm pretty sure you'd be familiar with a lot of them. Like, I think what really charged my creativity, though, was, I remember, hold on, let me see. I think it was back in, like, 2019, before I even started, like, making any of this shit. That's when I discovered, like, a whole bunch of projects that everyone have heard, but, like, it was new to me, you know what I mean? And,
yeah.
I'd say that's where I'd say you could say, like, a whole bunch of, like, reggae music, like, projects and shit like that, such as, like, early JPEG Mafia,
yeah,
Mr. Thug, Isolation, and all that shit.
Classic.
Like, yeah, man, like, now I find myself listening to, like, Dean Blunt, Knowledge, like, a whole bunch of shit. My favorite right now is probably everybody on Dean Blunt's label, and I also found myself listening to a lot of, like, underground, like, boom bap mixtapes and shit like that, instrumental tapes, all that shit, and I draw a lot of inspiration from that. But when it comes to emo shit and all that, like, I grew up listening to System of a Down,
nice,
and all those sorts of bands and shit like that. And said I find myself going to hardcore shows because good emotional outlets and shit, fun people. I just try to, and then you got the club shit. I love going to raves and all that. A lot of my friends are DJs. Once I got in this scene, I was introduced to a lot of club music as is, because club music and the shit that we make is kind of hand in hand.
Dude. So true. That's literally the theme of my show. Literally.
What's the theme?
The club music and the shit that you guys do, or underground hip hop, are hand in hand. I didn't even have to say it.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, they're folk musics. They're both folk musics. They're these global things that just sort of transmit through people, and every sort of region's able to throw its own spin on it. But
exactly. I've been I think a perfect example would probably be how back in last August I remember our group Nova Gang, we had a show, and that was where artists like Netsfin, that was his first breakout, and he had that famous video, and Xavier's dancing funnily on stage and all that shit. That was an interesting show, because you did have a nice mix of club and straight hip hop, and then just the shit that we make. Because it wasn't just straight up just Netsfin and shit like that. Of course, it was also us, but Days was the DJ, and he also did a set. And him being a pretty prolific house and jungle artist across continents was that was kind of revolutionary. And he played a song that he had with Mo Beretta from Surf Gang, and he came up, did a set. He did a short little set. It was just interesting to see the crowd. The crowd was so diverse, and they enjoyed every kind of music, and it's been like that to every show in this community that I've been to. And honestly, I'm glad you're making a series on it, because I've always wondered where the hell it came from myself.
Yeah. No, it's the theme of my show, and it's also the whole theme of the label that me and Freger are running, is to try to draw connections between club music and the whole underground hip hop scene, because I feel not enough people are connecting those dots. But on that note, what sort of club music are you really into? I mean, I know there's this one tape. Let me scroll through your Discog, because there's so much. I forget the name of the exact frickin' one, but this was one of my favorites back when I heard. Was it? Yeah, Night in Virginia, way back. Night in Virginia. It almost sounds were you into UK garage and shit like that? Because there's a couple tracks on there that just sound straight up like that, and then of course there's a drum and bass track on there too. But yeah, when I would hear that and hear the crazy production choices on there, I was I wonder what sort of stuff you're into, club music wise or electronic music.
So in terms of club music, just in case we had this conversation, I had my Spotify pulled up on my laptop the whole time.
Nice.
And because I like to just play music in my apartment. But I'd say club music.
You don't need to name artists, even just genres, scenes, whatever.
I think. Okay. Well, when it comes to, you did ask about garage and shit like that. I am pretty into garage.
Yes.
I'd say more than garage, I'm really into grime. I love that
No
shit.
fucking way. No fucking way. No fucking way. I had this exact same moment with Miami yesterday. They mentioned grime. Grime.
We were talking about grime yesterday, too.
Grime is my favorite music. Literally. It is my favorite 21st century music. Probably grime and footwork. But grime is just...
Yeah, footwork as well. That's my favorite, probably American club genre.
Yeah.
And, the thing that I love about grime is that not only is the music good, but it brings them together so well. I love watching the freestyles and watching the energy, and I'm just man, I hope one day I can get my friends together
yes.
and we could just MC our tracks,
Bro, hey, yo, next time you're in New York, I'm a DJ myself. I've actually been trying to recreate the energy of those sort of like pirate radio freestyles with the grime instrumentals and stuff, but I can't ever get like vocalists or MCs who like want to do it because people are usually like just too weirded out by grime instrumentals.
I'd be down. And
if you're ever down, yes, let me know.
I could get like a bunch of other people down because I know like people want to do this, but
please,
they are nervous. But if they hear it from me, I think they'd be down.
Grime is like my biggest inspiration. Like, God, I love that shit. But like, yeah, so you're into like the YouTube freestyles and all that, the pirate radio. Have you seen the one where Dizzy Rascal fights Crazy Titch?
Like Risky Roads and all that shit.
Risky Roads, yup.
Yeah, man. I think the first grime video that really like got me was I was just scrolling through Twitter back in 2020, and it was just some random dude who was like, dude, like the UK really got it, and it was a freestyle between like it was like a Boy Better Know freestyle from 2006.
Yup.
And it was JME started off, and then Skepta, and they had like a couple more dudes like. And I was just like, I love, like, they was, like, all screaming at the same time.
Yes.
Like, certain bars. And I'm just like, dude, this is, like, so fucking crazy.
It's
like,
punk. It's punk as fuck.
And they're just having so much fun. Like, that's what music is about. And I want to see that kind of unity in the community. You know what I mean? Yeah,
no, totally. And also the sense of community around it, and the sense of no one person's contribution is like more important than the others. Like footwork is similar, where it's like the dancers are just as important as the producers, who are just as important as the DJs. Like in grime, it's like the MC's important, the producer's important, and I feel like that's just so foreign to hip hop a lot of the time because it has such like a rock star mentality. You know, with a lot of artists, even in the underground. But
yeah, no, that is true. And I think, which will like this is another conversation I have. But I think the main problem is, I think people are too worried about an image, and that's like, I used to be upset with that. Now I kind of understand why, because we're in a part of the age of information where you can really just get scrutinized for whatever the fuck ever. So you got a lot of people growing up on the internet, and they're trying to navigate it, and their best way to navigate it is putting up a front so they don't get like just hated on by pretty much everyone on earth. But I think everyone's fear of being hated on by randoms is like ruining things. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, and I also feel like social media forces people to want to like promote themselves in a certain way, fill a certain niche.
Yeah, and the thing is that not everyone making music now like really likes music, really, and I think that's a problem too. Because then you just get like a soulless production. Like if you listen to like I'm sure you've listened to like many songs that have blown up over the past like year and a half, and you're able to point out like what it does and doesn't have soul. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
And it's kind of disturbing because most
of
them like don't have soul. You
know
what I mean?
Absolutely.
But everyone likes it because they can't discern like what gives a track like its soul and stuff like that. Because a lot of people listening don't really like music. They just like the patterns that they're hearing in the auto-tune and the 808s, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. But on that note, I know for me personally, what keeps me excited and keeps me interested in spite of all that, like soulless music, are sort of like what we were talking about before, those sort of like communities and local scenes that just will come out with sounds that you wouldn't have even thought were possible like just a couple years ago. And so on that note, is like, what is stuff that is inspiring to you right now, like that is currently coming out, like that's new, like that you see happening that you're like, oh, that has soul, like that's exciting to me?
Well, I'd say okay, so a couple people, it was a lot of good music that dropped last night. Dean Blunt and Joanne Robertson just dropped an out. I don't know if it's an album, but I heard it was a project, so I got to check that out. And then Jungle's artist Nia Archives, she dropped a project. And then one of my favorite rappers of all time, Makami. He
Oh,
dropped a project,
nice.
and
Nice.
I have to listen to that like right after
We
I get
love
off the phone. Like I'm
Makami.
so excited.
We love
You listen to
Makami.
Makami?
I love Makami. Are you kidding me, man? I'm a huge Makami fan.
He's a fucking
Huge.
genius, dude.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. Being in the tri-state area, you kind of gotta take that shit with pride. You know?
Exactly, man. Like, and I don't even know. Like, there's so much I could say about him. Like, he's definitely inspiring as a songwriter too, because he's able to, like, I've heard him switching between like so many different languages just like mid song, and I'm like, damn.
When he
like,
suddenly
holy shit.
goes into Creole, it's like, what the hell?
That shit is so cold, man.
It is. It's so cool. But so that actually brings me to another question that I had in my notes. But that you're one of the few artists I feel like who straddles this kind of divide in hip hop that I feel like has only gotten stronger and stronger over the course of like my lifetime. Where it seems like after trap really blew up, hip hop has kind of split into like two different camps. And there's like the trap and like post trap sort of stuff, like broadly. And then there are people who are still sort of sticking to like the sample based boom bap sound. And those two worlds have sort of become so different that they're almost like completely different genres at this point. And I feel like rarely do you meet someone who is a fan of one who's also an enthusiastic fan of the other. And I was just wondering like what you think about that divide and how your work kind of straddles it, because I feel like I could say just as much that you're a peer of somebody like Mike, you know, or Makami, as much as you are a peer of like, you know, Reptilian Club Boys or, you know, something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, I would say the same because, like, I love all of those artists, and I am like, I'd say like I'm relatively like connected with them. Like me and Mike are mutuals on Instagram, if you want to include that as a connection, which
Hell
is
yeah.
crazy to me. Like one day I remember I dropped my self-titled, and that was the same day like he hit me with the follow. I'm like, no fucking way, Mike heard it. On top of that, I was able to get my manager was able to get Sweet Trip to like review my album before
Sweet
I dropped
Trip?
it, which was fucking crazy. Yeah.
What?
He was able to get Sweet Trip and Slauson Malone to review my album.
What?
And yeah, man, that shit was. I didn't even know how to feel about that. Like that, like it's something I still can't believe to this day. And he was able to make those connections because he used to work for Rate Your Music, and he used to do like interviews and shit like that. So he already knew these people, and he was just like, yeah, I got this new artist, like Quinn, check out their self-titled, and they gave like detailed like descriptions of what they liked, what they didn't like, and that helped me a ton with just how I make music in general. And so, you know, on that note, that's the neighbors. Anyways, on that note, I mean, being peers of both, I'd say like it gets lonely sometimes because you don't meet a lot of people who like have their hands in both baskets. Granted, I know a lot of people. Well, no, not even a lot of people. I'd say I know like a handful of people who do, and it goes without saying I'm really close with all of them when it comes to discussing music. But I wish more people like. I guess I just wish more people appreciated like the whole instrumental hip hop side of things, because I wouldn't say it's a dying art. It's definitely flourishing. More and more fans by the day. It was a dying art, but not anymore. Thank Christ. But I feel like a lot of people in that previously mentioned like Reptilian Club Boys-esque crowd and shit like that, like they don't really understand like that kind of music because a large portion of them didn't grow up in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's pretty foreign, if not silly, to them. And you know but it's culture though, which sucks because it's culture and it should be appreciated in the masses. But you know, I can't make everybody like everything. You know what I mean? So
No, totally.
All I can do is let my influences speak through my music. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think that's been working well because, like, I find a lot of my fan base is getting into shit like that, or like fans from the other, like, I'd say like listeners from the other crowds, like they find a liking in my music because I just like I throw everything at it, like all my influences and all that. That's why I have like the instrumental breaks in my tapes and shit like that, like because I wanna just like I want to do everything, man. Like, I listen to so much music that I just want to, like, cite all of my influences and just do everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I've got ambient projects that I posted on, like, alt accounts and just let them sit there. And I'm not telling anyone what they are. Like, and, you know, like, I don't know. I just love music. Like, that's the answer for everything, really.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. But sort of going off that is, how do you see these things? Like, do you think it's all sort of part of a continuum of, like, hip-hop and hip-hop culture? Or do you think that idea is almost kind of, like, obsolete for Gen Z, and this new music is almost something completely separate?
Now, here's the thing. Like, I think the new music is... I think it is completely separate nowadays. It wasn't always that way. But I think nowadays it is because you have the invention of I think the invention of like the whole opium and all that shit really fucked up a lot because a lot of people want to be Cardi. They wanted to be Cardi. That's no question. That's a whole nother conversation that you've probably had a million times. Like, we all know it. But what came with that was a lot of Cardi had a lot of fans that previously weren't fans of hip-hop until they heard him because his music is so easily accessible.
Yeah.
So with that came a lot of people and a lot of his audience they enjoy streamers and whatnot. So they carry that same energy and they bring it here, and they find themselves liking lots of artists such as like Osama Sun or, you know, Xavier or something like that, or Netspin or something like that, and they redistribute that energy to those artists, and they go deeper and deeper down that underground ladder, and that, I don't know, the behavior becomes widespread, and that behavior makes it hard for people to appreciate like the old school hip-hop sound and stuff like that, because nothing is like, with that crowd, since they're all like, since hip-hop is like not really anything to them, they didn't really grow up with it or anything like that, to them they're not really taking the music seriously because they don't really like music. They just like the way it stimulates their minds and how they like, how like the shit that comes with it, such as the image and all of that, like the way it makes people look, because you can't help as a listener you can't help but to put people on pedestals, no matter how tall or small it is. Like, I do the same with even my friends, and you know, like, I guess after that it just depends on how you carry yourself around them, of course. But fucking yeah, man, like, I think the fact that people are losing patience with music, and they can't sit down and listen to a full-length project, you know, and I would blame, I do blame, like, apps like TikTok. I don't think it's the primary cause, because there were definitely, like, things leading up to the creation and the creation and popularization of TikTok that should also be talked about. But, yeah, man, I think it all just comes back to short-form content and, like, perception. Perception seems to be really big nowadays, you know what I mean?
Totally. But, to go off that, how do you classify or perceive yourself as an artist, and how do you see yourself in relation to, like, your generation? Because I know this is a big question, but it's like, your music, more than almost like few others I can think of, maybe like Jane Remover's a good kind of analog, but you kind of really, to me at least, represent the kind of frazzled in between mind state of Gen Z, where it's like we're constantly in flux, constantly evolving, constantly shifting, because we're online. But like how do you see yourself as an artist, and like how do you classify your own music, I guess?
Well, I'd say I see myself as I try not to like. Well, actually, no. It's not that I try not to think about how I see myself. It's that I just don't find myself normally perceiving myself. And actually, no, I do by listening to my own music. But I never really thought about that question. I think, like, I think it's mainly because when it comes to myself, I try not to like hype myself up too much. Like, I try to keep myself pretty grounded. You know, like just another musician making music. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I would say, like, I would give myself a little bit of credit with how confidently I like to approach my sounds and all that, and just like what I like to put out there, all the different sounds that I like to put out there. And I mainly pride myself on that because I try to push other people to do the same thing. I get a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, I want to drop this, but it's not what my listeners are used to, and I want to, give them this and give them that. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, it's not up to the listeners what you want to make. So you can drop it, and if they're not on board, they're just not on board. It's not like your career's over. It's just that the track didn't do so well, and that doesn't matter either if you don't really care about those things. And usually I do tell people, if you do care about, your track's doing well or whatever, then you're not making music for the right reason, and you're not going to make it very far. And that's been proven true every time. I haven't seen anyone who's in it for the music. I mean, I haven't seen anyone who's in it for the numbers last very long. At top, like, at most a year. And, like, yeah, I guess I would just say I'm a music lover turned artist. Like, and it's nice to be both because I can, like, take what I love about the music that I listen to and incorporate it into my own. And I think that's pretty neat,
Totally.
With about a decade and some change of production under my belt, I could make anything I really want to put my mind to, which I think is pretty cool because that was the mission when I was younger. Like, because I knew at this age I would at least be established in some way, shape, or form. I didn't think I would get this far, but I'd at least be established in my talents to be comfortable with expressing myself artistically. And yeah, man, that's basically how I view myself. Just like just another, I wouldn't say just artist, but just another person trying to, like, make their way. Because, lots of personalization and all that. But yeah.
Yeah. No, totally. That's awesome. But I was also wondering, like, how do you think the experience of, like, being a quote unquote Zoomer and, like, going through COVID and all that, do you think that's been important to your work at all? Like those sort of generational experiences?
Yeah, honestly, I do think it's important because without COVID, I wouldn't have met a lot of the people that I know right now. I mean, that goes without saying. I'm pretty sure anyone could say that about anybody they know right now. But I think during COVID, a lot of people were just forced to, like, find out what they like, because what else could you do indoors? So, that introduced a lot of lesser known music genres into the, I wouldn't say mainstream spotlight, but just introduced into the spotlight. And I was thankful of that, like, because it in people's heads, it built a tolerance for what they can listen to. So now you have a bunch of, like, people who previously just looked at electronic music as, like, just stereotypical club music, like just shit you'd hear on the radio, like Zed, Flow Rider, and shit like that. Their definition of it completely changed because they were forced to discover new kinds of electronic music, especially like the more underground types, like the previously mentioned footwork or garage or garage. Don't want the English people to get on me, but also things like drum and bass, acid house and, atmospheric D&B, all those subgenres, lots of subgenres, and a lot of people see that as a problem, but I think it's pretty cool, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so too.
But exactly, I never really seen a
Yeah.
problem with lots of subgenres.
No.
I'm glad people can put a name to these things too, because typically the names of these subgenres are pretty fucking cool, I'd say. Like,
I think
I think
so.
the coolest one I've ran across so far is terrorcore. Like, I love
Yeah,
that
that's a
shit.
sick name. Sick name. Yeah. No, I mean, I think the subgenres I think they're cool because it's a way for people to kind of like hone their creativity in a way. It's almost like you come up with this like one recipe, like I don't know, like the Jersey Club kick or like the footwork, like vocal
Oh,
chops or
yeah.
something. And then that allows all these people who normally would be amateurs to just like try their hand at it, and they come up with the weirdest, craziest shit.
Exactly. So I am thankful for quarantine because, like, it has people doing that now. And holy shit, have we heard some new sounds recently? You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
and not even just like coming from me, I guess. But like coming from, like I'd say like other crazy shit that's going on is like in the UK, lots of their club scenes are branching out into other shit. Um, I know this one artist. He's primarily a house artist, but he started making he's like experimenting with both punk and house, and it's like working super well actually. And you're just seeing people mesh these genres together, and you're hearing new sounds and stuff like that, and I think that's how I don't know if you heard him, but it's another band that's on the rise named like Femtonile or some shit.
Oh, I've heard of them.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's made up of like people that I was pretty close with like a lot of them during like 2021, 2022. And I'm still close with, well, I wouldn't say close, but like we still have mutual respect for each other. And but it's crazy because all of those people have been making like a different sort of experimental electronic for years on end. I'm talking like decade, if not decades. And it's crazy to see them all come together and just like make whatever the fuck, you know what I mean?
Totally.
And that's why I don't think like shit's over. Like a
Oh,
lot of people are
never.
like, oh, the underground's dead. Like you just don't know how big the underground is, you know what I mean?
No, it's endless. It's endless. It's like an ocean. It could never be dead. It
Exactly.
could never be dead.
And I
But
don't find myself like particularly liking everything. I don't have to like things to
no.
appreciate them. Like, it's even sounds that I don't like that are being popular right now. Like I can't say I'm a listener of like a majority of fentanyl songs, but I like what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And I think it's a beacon of hope for other artists because just people just doing whatever they want, like going against the grain. That's what we need more of. You know what I mean? So, you know,
Absolutely.
yeah,
It,
it's
it,
it's crazy, man.
it is. And so if there was any one sound that you haven't tackled yet, or that like, genre, anything that inspires you that you'd want to tackle, what would it be?
So right now, right now, um, I did mention before that I'm trying to like work footwork into my music in some way, shape, or form, whether it be just you know, fast tempo and really compressed percussion with lots of vocal chops, which is probably what I'm going to go for. However, I'm born and raised in Baltimore.
I wanted to ask you
And
about this. Glad you brought it up.
yeah, that's a lot of, oh shit, a lot of tales from that. But I'm born and raised in Baltimore, and my dad and uncle were both Baltimore, really prolific local Baltimore club DJs in the '90s.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh
and that's
man.
what. So they have a love for music themselves. I have a really artistically driven family, and like my uncle, he does graffiti. He's pretty big in that city, and he got me into this shit. Like it's amazing, but that's besides the point. Fucking they had their whole like Baltimore club sound going on, and I think I wanna try and lean into that too. Like maybe use the same instruments or something like that.
You should.
Um, what's up?
Oh, I just said you should.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
shit, I think I'm gonna try today actually. But yeah. So with this next project I'm putting out, I want it to be something like that because I heard all this since I've been listening to all that grime shit. Like I wanna find something that like keeps up the energy. I wanna start making more energetic, but still like equally emotional music. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
and I still wanna add in like some slow tracks here and there. I'm just trying to find the balance between the two right now, and that's why I've been so quiet this year. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. But so was Baltimore Club like just like around you growing up? Like was it like played in the house at all?
Um, Actually, no, not really. I was left to discover most of it because my dad, um, he, sorry, my neighbor came out the crib. That like distracted me for a second. But my dad, since like of course when I was born, like him and my mother were already together and shit like that. He didn't play a lot of that around my mom because like fast music is not really her thing. She has like severe anxiety and all that. And it doesn't particularly stress her out, but she likes slower sounds like R&B and shit like that. So I grew up on like lots of R&B underground R&B underground hip hop. My dad listened to a lot of Wu-Tang Clan, even met them a couple times. Fucking
Nice.
and my mom, straight R&B listener, like nothing but she still enjoys hip hop and she knows all the classics. My uncle, he's just straight hip hop now. He still listens to Baltimore Club here and there, and whenever I have heard it, it usually did come from him. But um, yeah, that's my uncle's actually trying to get back into DJing because uh, like graffiti's kind of like taken over his life, and then he like ended up settling down, found a wife, had a kid, but he's trying to pick back up on DJing, and so is my father, which I think is really cool. Like my family is trying to get back into the arts. My grandfather was a jazz player and a visual artist and shit like that. And I think just all this art around me just inspired me to create, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. I mean, how could it not? But I was thinking so how long did you live in Baltimore? Because I know a lot of your tracks you reference like Virginia, and then you were in Georgia like as a teenager. But you also seem to shout out Baltimore a lot, and it seems to like loom in your imagination. So did you like grow up there like as a kid and then leave, or like what was the
So,
story with that?
so that was the thing. I did grow up there as a kid. We grew up in West Baltimore, deep West Baltimore. And if you're not familiar, West Baltimore is like the literal like apocalypse in real life.
That's like where the
And
wires set, basically.
yeah, it's where the wire's set. And like, dude, our house used to get broken into pretty common. I remember waking up all the time to somebody just going through my drawers and shit, and I would just have to go back to sleep. And that ended up like, and not to mention I don't even need to mention all the gun violence, but after that, like, my family, like, I think it was around like, I was super young when we first moved out of the state when my dad joined the military because he was like, okay, we have to get out of here. Like, I can't raise a family in the city. So he joined the military, became active duty, and we were stationed in Augusta, Georgia when I was
Mm,
6. And then, okay, well, I'll give you it in order. We went to Augusta, Georgia, and then after that, we went back to, no, we went to Virginia, I think. Yeah, we went to Virginia. And then we went to Pittsburgh. And then we went back to Virginia. And then that brought us to Columbus. And that I moved out of my parents' crib. And that brought me to Atlanta.
I
But
see.
in between all of these times, I would still go back to Baltimore really frequently and spend a lot of time at my grandmother's house. So I was partially raised there as well. And, being subject to the same exact horrors, of course, but after a while you get used to it and you start to love the city. I still love that city, and
Yeah,
honestly, I would live there today. Not in the parts that I used to live in, but I would still live in Baltimore because I got a lot of like, I got friends there. Like that's where my manager's from and all that. And you know, that's why I'm excited for this DC show because it's going to be a lot of family and shit there. And I get to really show who I am, like, you know what I mean. And I got lots of love for the DMV because it's a lot of creativity there. it's a lot of creativity that's like suppressed by the violence. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And like for example, I remember there's this collective that my man's is like a lot of my friends was working with. They was called ST6, SEAL Team 6, and they ended up getting like indicted on like racketeering charges and shit like that, and all of them got locked up. And I was just like, damn, like that sucks, because they was really going hard in music. And I think that's what I mean by like violence really swallows a talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether you're a victim of it or whether you're doing it, you know what I mean? And you know, so I guess that's why I personally never found myself getting involved in like such shit. Well, not none that I can mention at least, but you know, like, yeah, man, like beautiful place, and you wouldn't like, people really wouldn't understand unless they were from there. You know what I mean?
Totally. And so you still view it as sort of like home to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I still view it as home. You know, given that it's given us hell, we still all love the place, and we still all go there pretty frequently. I still have a good time there. There's good parts of Baltimore, don't get me wrong. But, you know, I think the problem is that crime even happens like out of the city and the counties and stuff like that. We just had to get away from it, you know?
Totally. But so if your dad and your uncle were DJs back in the day, did they know like big luminaries like Rod Lee or K Swift? Like, did they know those people?
That's something I'm going to have to ask, because they never really talked about who they knew. They always talked about the clubs there, such as the one they kept bringing up was Hammerjacks. And that was a club specifically in Baltimore, club and house music. And that was a club that they frequented like every week. And the thing about the 90s, back when they was going to the club, is that it wasn't like, they didn't really have lots of friends around. It was family, like lots of my cousins and shit. I have a really large family, so they'd all just like mob out to these shows and shit like that and just rock the house, you know what I mean? And they usually only tell me the stories, the crazy stories that came from those times, but they never really told me who they knew. But if I'm not mistaken, my uncle and my dad have like a picture with like, I think it was K Swift like at a bar or something.
Oh, no way.
Because Baltimore's not really big, you know what I mean?
No, it's a small city. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have a high chance of running into a local artist there, like at any place for leisure, you know what I mean?
Totally. But yeah, no, that's just crazy because yeah, as far as American club scenes go, Baltimore club would probably be like top of the list for me, like right after Footwork. And K Swift might be like one of my absolute like favorite DJs ever. Mm-hmm. So I have to nerd out on that shit. I can't help myself. But
oh yeah, man, like actually, you just gave me a fruitful conversation to have with my father. But yeah, man.
Nice.
I'll actually get back to you on that, because I do like to nerd out about music. So I'm gonna hit you up about that.
Please, I'm your guy. If you want, and if you want any weird ass like rare Baltimore club mixes or grime radio sessions, whatever, I'm your guy. So
yeah, definitely. I'm gonna send you this grime mix I found yesterday after the call.
Please.
It's a mix from the Meridian crew back in 2004.
Oh, I know this one.
I found it on YouTube.
I know this one. I think I know this one.
It's like an hour and a half long.
Yes.
And it has like no visuals. That shit is so literally anywhere you skip to it, it's insane.
When JME's like jack your necklace or like come to the ends and whatever, like there's this one part.
Shit is so raw.
Yeah, where he's just screaming like "beat you up" and it's fire. It's fire.
I'm gonna listen to that again actually, but yeah, man, like just I don't know. I just keep circling back to like the energy of that. It's just so amazing. But I think a lot of that. I think I keep circling back to it because a lot of that unity that you usually see is in the club scenes, you know, and in the electronic scenes, you know, and like a lot of those DJs, a lot of those people are DJs now, you know what I mean? So there's not really any lyrics to go off of. The back-to-back sets are really cool still, and like the DJs like making lots of appearances at completely other like genre shows and shit like that is super cool to me. I just wish we had more people vocally doing that. So I guess that's what I'm trying to do with my sound, just like just give people a way to mesh those sounds together, so we can have some fucking fun, you know what I mean?
Bro, that's literally what I try to do with my music. That was literally like my big epiphany like 3 years ago whenever I started my current project. I was like, Dude, like, what if you took, like, Footwork or Baltimore Club Grime and you actually, like, made pop songs out of it? Like, we need that, you know? Not enough people doing that. But,
Yeah, man. And I think a lot of people would like it, but yeah, man.
but, anyways, so I think this is about all the time I got, because I have to go do a rover walk. I walk dogs. I used to be a teacher, quit, and now I walk dogs.
Yeah, I don't blame you for quitting. I got another homie that used to teach in Brooklyn.
Dude, it was a absolute nightmare. Had 3 different shootings that were all horrible experiences in my life, but whatever.
Yeah,
we're past that. So I gotta walk this freaking dog. But
no problem.
last
no problem.
question is real quick. What advice would you give to like a young artist coming up?
Bro, like any inspirations you had that were young, don't think that all those influences and all those sounds and shit, especially the sounds, don't think that the sounds have died because the time has passed. You can still bring it back and implicate it into whatever you're making now. You know what I mean? And you can still like I think that's the best shit ever. Like citing your inspirations through your sound. Like I love it when I can listen to an artist and I'm just like, yeah, they definitely like grew up listening to this, or they definitely listen to this artist or something like that. And you can just make so many different connections with them. And I think we need more of that. You know what I mean? Just people just unapologetically being themselves, dropping whatever the fuck they want. You know what I mean? And it's something I've been saying for years, but it's something I'm going to keep saying until people start doing it. And I'm not saying I'm the one that's going to get people to start doing it, but I at least want to, push the narrative out there. You know what I mean? And, that's why that's why I heavily appreciate Xavier, because he's one of those people that's like not afraid to just put anything out there. And he's been that way since I've entered the community. And yeah, I think we need more personalization out there, because if anything, that's what really brews inspiration and creativity and fun. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And that's what kept music alive for all these years. So, I want to continue to keep it alive, and I want other people to do the same. So, yeah, it's never bad to just do whatever the hell you want. It may not sound good like in the moment, but it's going to sound good to somebody, and it's going to sound good to you eventually once you figure yourself out. It just takes time. Don't skip out on that time and cut corners and create some shit that everyone else is making because no one's listening to the shit you're putting out. You know what I mean? And
Totally.
So yeah, that's basically what I have to say about it.
Hell yeah. Well, yo, it's been like an absolute